Yo, okay, so we got another video for your head top. So, July, what did I watch? We gonna find out. So the first up on this list, we have Paris, Texas. And so I've been seeing a lot of shots of this movie on film pages on Instagram, and it really caught my attention with how good the cinematography looked. And so I was like, I think I gotta check this out. And oh, I'm so happy I did. First off, the cinematography was insane. Thanks to Robbie Mueller. He's probably gonna go down as one of my favorite cinematographers. I've really been watching a lot of his work, but that's a story for another day. The story and the pacing of this movie was like a chef's kiss, in my opinion. The characters and the acting were interesting, like they made sense, they made logical decisions, they were smart. They didn't spoon feed you, but the clues were there. You just had to watch it and figure it out for yourself. The scenes mixed with the cinematography were a match made in heaven. Usually when a movie does really well, or like certain movies, they have that feel, I start thinking about my Nana. And that's what happened. And so that's when I knew like, oh, this movie is one of the ones. This movie may make my like top 25 all time list, not gonna lie, I just seen it once. It is that good to me. I highly recommend you watch this movie. Wim Wenders is the director. Gotta check him out. Second on the list, we have The American Friend. And you can thank Paris, Texas for this choice because they're directed by the same person. American Friend was an interesting movie actually. I have fun with it, and again, visually sexy. The cinematographer was again Robbie Mueller, who did an outstanding job, and the cinematographer was once again Robbie Mueller, who did an outstanding job. Color grade in this was off the charts. I liked the random job that the main character had. I thought that was really cool. It's really different. The fact that this was a Tom Ripley movie is also crazy because it didn't feel as if it was, in my opinion. It was a roller coaster ride that seemed to have more than one climax, and it was very fun to watch. It kept you on your toes with some of the villains, or not even the villain, but he felt like he was a little shady. And so it just kept you on your toes with that. I just really like the story. If you know who Tom Ripley is or seen Ripley and the Matt Damon version, you can understand how The American Friend doesn't really give you that feeling. And I like that. It's different. And this is like another masterclass of the duo of Wim Wenders and Robbie Mueller. So I would check this out too. Highly anticipated since it's the last of its trilogy of X and Pearl, we have Maxine. And personally, this was the weakest of the three in my opinion. And that is no slight whatsoever. But it wasn't terrible. It didn't feel as large of a world as Pearl. The story and action weren't as engaging as X. The characters didn't resonate with me that well. The cops in the movie felt as if they were a parody and really couldn't take them that seriously too. Villains felt lazy, and the big plot twist was underwhelming personally. The movie looked great though. I simp for good color grade and aesthetics, and they bring that in the movie. They definitely brought you into that time frame. Mia Goth did well, but it didn't have that flair like the previous two movies, especially compared to Pearl's performance. It's still a really fun movie. I would recommend watching this, especially if you're a fan of the trilogy. They tried something new. It was an interesting story. Reasons I said all that I said was just me comparing them to X and Pearl, just not as a movie as a whole, but just where I ranked them and why I ranked it where I do out of the trilogy. That's where this came from. For this next film, you can thank The American Friend and also Paris, Texas for this next film because this is also directed by Wim Wenders. We have Perfect Days. This movie was very well done. In some aspects, it reminds me of myself in a lot of ways. It's very relaxing and a nice pace. It can get mistaken for being slow. It's a mature movie, and I think it resonates with young adults and a lot of people who are older, of course. It makes you want to actually better your life and get into a healthy, productive routine. I kind of got emotional watching this too. I really related with some things, man. Just watching it, it just made me think about things too, and the reality of things as well. And from the cover art and it being a Hulu original, I was really blindsided on how good this movie is. And I think it's one of the top movies of the year. And no mistaken, it's by Wim Wenders, who I think is a director that I really enjoy watching his work. For the next movie, Oscars should award them for the best marketing, truthfully, because I was excited to finally see this heavily anticipated movie, Longlegs. This movie was very split when it came to those who liked or disliked it. Like the first half of that movie was fire. It was so creepy. I was like, oh yeah. Still, it's a solid movie. I enjoyed the movie and want to see it again actually, but I think it could have been better. Just the ending. I can tell they cut a few scenes that I wish they expanded on. I won't go into detail because I don't want to spoil the movie. There's just a scene to where it's like they could have added the whole clip of how they find such and such. They just show you like, oh, they got such and such. And it's just like they could have showed like the whole way of finding this guy, but they didn't. And I didn't like that. The cinematography and style of this film is well done. So much swag into this movie. It really brings you into that creepiness, cold environment. It just was exciting. Excited to see more from this director. Oz Perkins, his father, was actually the lead star in the cult classic movie Psycho, Anthony Perkins. If I'm not mistaken, this is his debut movie. And so I'm excited to see more from him. Longlegs was definitely a success, like in a whole, and I'm excited to see more of what he got. If this is what he's gonna bring to the table, I'm in. You can thank Longlegs for this next film, Cure. Some say Longlegs had some inspiration from this movie. After watching Cure, I can kind of see how. I really enjoyed this movie, first off. This movie understood what it was trying to do. Also, the movie was not like crazy with the gore or outrageous horror scenes, but still make you feel uncomfortable, and they weren't also relying on jump scares. I don't think there was a jump scare in this movie. It's a very smart movie, and it makes you think, and it's the little things. The cinematography was excellent, and I think it helped tell the story of this movie. I like the placements, I like the coverage as well, and as far as horror mystery movies go, this is one of the ones. It may seem slow to people who are used to how most horror thrillers are made. You may think it's really boring, and how the fact that it's not giving you any jump scares or anything like that, you really would think this movie is really bland. I would go in with a clear mind and really just enjoy a really well done movie with a great story. So my mother is back with the recommendations. I told her that I seen Longlegs and I also seen Cure, and so she recommended that I go see the movie The Omen. I would say it's a very solid movie. I love older classic films, and similar to Cure, they introduce horror in a very stoic, proper way, if that makes any sense at all. Because it's just, they didn't rely on special effects or gore. They really relied more so on the story, which I think it needs to be done more. They aren't trying to gross you out. They're trying to creep you out mentally. Movies back then knew how to tell good stories, not being able to rely on special effects. It was a fun time, and in some ways you knew where it was going, but still had parts that throws you off a little bit because you weren't really expecting that to happen. I can think of one scene for sure towards the back end of the movie. I was like, dang, they did them like that. But you'll see what I'm talking about, hopefully. But it's a very fun movie, and I think it's a fun one to watch with your significant other, especially in the dark and y'all just trying to find something entertaining. This is one of them. So with this next movie, I wasn't really too excited to go see it, but I was very curious, and this movie is Twisters. I have never seen the first original Twister movie. I just knew about how like it was a really like classic movie, especially in Hollywood and stuff. So after watching it, I'm happy I saw it though. It was a very cute movie, respectfully. It gave me the classic early 2000s vibes of how like the plot and pacing was. It's a movie that is going to be hard to dislike, to be honest with you. They did a lot of good, and the story was interesting too, since I haven't seen the original Twister movie. Glenn Powell was dope, along with Daisy Edgar Jones. It was a good time. The movie was a really good time. That's pretty much all I got with that. It's a good time. I check it out. So this next movie caught me by absolute surprise, and it is 100 Beavers. I had an absolute blast with this movie. From the story to how it was made, how it was shot, the special effects, the not taking itself too seriously to perfection. This was a flawless movie. It makes you think that there is no excuse to executing a movie that you draw up in your brain. I actually laughed a lot while watching this movie. I can think a movie is funny and not laugh at all. I can, like, for real, I'm one of them. I can not laugh physically, but I still think it's funny, or that line was good. I'm like that sometimes. But I was actually laughing. I can't lie. I wanted to hate this movie the first 15 minutes. I wanted to hate this movie so bad, but I just couldn't. I'm just surprised this movie didn't make as much of a splash when it dropped compared to other films that came out around that time. And I think it's a movie that's really been in the shadows. I will be watching this again, and I'm looking forward to the next project that this director makes with a larger budget. 100 Beavers. Watch this movie. For this next movie, shout out to the homie Jordan. So I finally got a chance to see the movie from beginning to end, and this is Jaws. As we all know, this is a classic movie directed by Steven Spielberg, and what made this experience even better was that we saw this movie in a vintage theater, and it felt as if I straight up time traveled to the 70s, because it was a fully packed out theater. The energy was insane, and everyone was clapping during the famous lines, and it was just amazing. I legit felt like I was in the 70s. Watching this at home is not as intense. Like, you wouldn't get nervous at all during this movie, and the jump scares would not hit the same at all. But seeing this in a packed out vintage theater, like, it was intense. The jump scares was doing its due diligence, and the shots they were getting in this movie was insanely beautiful, that I don't think anyone would really pay attention to unless you saw it in the theaters. And I'm truly happy I got a chance to see this the proper way, and I hope you all get a chance too, because it's really worth seeing it in theaters, because it's amazing. It's a good movie. I understand why it did what it did, and especially now 2024, and seeing all the things that I've seen and still seeing Jaws, and it still hits. I can only imagine seeing this in the 70s when it first came out and the impact that it made. I can see why Steven Spielberg is who he is, because wow. And last but not least, we have Deadpool and Wolverine. This movie can also be nominated for Best Marketing of the Year. I'm a little bit torn with this movie, I'm not gonna lie. I had a blast watching it, especially the nostalgia plastered all over this movie, but I was a bit disappointed with how the story went and also how the comedy was. I think Ryan Reynolds is extremely witty and he's really funny, like he's very talented, but I wish he gave more of the performance of the first and the second Deadpool in this one, personally. I feel he was a bit too over the top with the improv jokes. That's his thing though. I don't never want him to stop, but this is just how I was feeling. The story had a lot going on and it felt sloppy in some aspects. It was hard to kind of keep up of what was really the main mission or the main thing. And it wasn't really, but it was still just the other stuff that was going on. It can kind of take you off of the real path that they were going on. But I was enjoying the ride though, so it was like one of them things, like it got to the point I just didn't care anymore of like what the main mission was. I was just along for the ride and I was just enjoying that, truthfully. So that still made it fun. And my favorite part of the movie was honestly Channing Tatum's character. He was the funniest thing in this movie, and I'm not gonna lie to you, and this is just my opinion. His accent and just how he was moving, his character period, hilarious, bro. I truthfully don't see myself watching it again, but I will for sure show up for the next Deadpool, like in the first day it comes out. Thanks for watching this video. The goal is to stay on track this time. I got you. Like and subscribe, please. You have a good day. Go see a movie in the theaters. Just watch movies, period, because they good. Deuces.